Hello everybody and welcome to Hillians Bricks. So you may have seen a video that I did last week where I went to a brick festival in Croydon. Croydon, if you don't know, is to the south of London. It's within the M25 and for me that's around about a 2 hour, 10-minute drive away, so it's not too bad. I say I've done a few brick festivals a little bit further away than that. This for me was actually an extra brick festival. So with the brick festivals as a trader you have to register an interest and purchase tables from the people at Brick Festival. That is becoming more and more difficult. I think as these brick festivals have become more and more popular, they are seeming to sell out a little quicker than they used to in the past. However, there were some extra tickets available. I wasn't originally booked in for this event. It was about a week before an email came through and I applied for a couple of tables. Normally I'll get 2 tables and a backing table, but for whatever reason there weren't backing tables available. That ended up not being too much of a bad thing, but that's one of those things. So off I set to the Croydon Brick Festival bright and early. I got all my sets all prepared and ready as I always do. I took quite a few sets with me. I took a total of, as I'm reading my notes here, 103 box sets. So what I consider box sets is anything sort of from a small sort of £10 small like city box or a promo or something to sort of the big sets like the modular buildings and things like that. So there's 103 of those, so I managed to cram them in my car quite well. And I also take some poly bags with me as well. I think I took around about 50 poly bags. I just normally have a little box on my table with poly bags in, just so people can flick through them and have a look at the sets. So the event itself was fine. Obviously being in December you probably expect the weather to be quite bad, but actually the weather was fine. There had been rain, but there was no rain on the morning of the event. Got there at 7:30. The gates hadn't been locked to the venue, which was a sports hall just outside of Croydon itself. But eventually we got let in and we got into the venue. I knew quite a few other traders from there, so hello to all of those other people that were at the event. It's always sort of nice to see a few familiar faces, and basically you get a couple of hours to unpack your car, load up your tables, get all your tables all ready and presented, and I think I did quite a good job of how the actual table looked. It takes me a little while to get it to look like that, but it's definitely worth it. And then the doors open. Now I had seen previously, before I went to the event, that there still were quite a few tickets available. So normally what the Brick Festival will do is they have tickets available at 10 AM for the early bird, and they're normally a little more pricey than the normal tickets for the general public. And I think they were charging £13 each for those tickets, which I myself maybe think's a little bit high. In the past they've charged £10, which I think is a much more reasonable amount, but that's one of those things. That's what they need to charge for these particular events. That's one of those things. And then I think from 11 o'clock they charge less. I think it's £7 for adults. There are different prices for kids, I don't know what they are. So the 10 o'clock or the early bird tickets, there were still quite a few tickets available, and I know when I've been to events in the past like at Bournemouth and Weston-super-Mare, I think all of those tickets had actually previously sold out before the event went live. The 11 o'clock tickets were all sold out, so that was good. So they had sold quite a few tickets, but again the 12 o'clock tickets there still had quite a lot of tickets left. And I know, for example, at Bournemouth earlier this year in September, which was a very, very busy event, I mean it's probably the busiest that I've been to, I think they'd sold out of 11, 12 and 1 o'clock tickets as well, and I think they'd only got tickets from 2 o'clock onwards. So I was sort of a little bit concerned, thinking it might be quieter than normal. So I was aware that it was going to be a little bit quieter just because I knew that they hadn't sold tickets. And certainly when the doors opened at 10 o'clock there was a decent amount of people that came in through the doors, but it certainly wasn't as busy as I'd seen it at previous brick festivals of similar size. Now whatever that reason is, I don't know. Personally, I think is a couple of things. Maybe the Brick Festival people hadn't maybe advertised their event quite as much as they probably could have done. I know they normally use Facebook and things like that, but it was interesting because a couple of people came up to me on the stall, said hello and having a chat to me and things, which is always great. And they had said, well, I'm local, I live 10 minutes away from here, And I didn't know this was on until they'd seen my video a week before promoting the event and saying I was going to this event. So it was sort of interesting that sort of some of the Lego community hadn't actually been aware that this event was being held. So maybe that was one of the problems. I also think it being December. Now, I always thought that December would be a really, really good time to do a Lego fair because it's Christmas time, people are wanting to spend money on presents and gifts and things like that. However, I think maybe the opposite happens, and I've certainly seen this on a few other toy fairs and brick festivals that have been around this time of year, is that the footfall just tends not to be that good. I think because people are busy doing other things in the preparation for Christmas period. They maybe have already bought their presents and gifts and things that they want, so maybe they don't have as much expendable income as they normally would this time of year to spend on sort of extra purchases for themselves and things like that. So I think there's possibly a few reasons why the footfall wasn't as good as it normally would be. However, by 11 o'clock it did get quite busy in there and there were quite a few people in. However, I sort of had realised within the first hour or two that the amount of sales that I was taking on my table just weren't as much as they normally would be. It was good because I was able to have a chat to people. Quite a few people came up to me and said they'd seen my video and said hello and had a nice chat. So hello if that was you. There was quite a few people. I can't remember everybody's name, so apologies for that. There were quite a few people that came up to me to say hello. But it did mean I was able to have a chat to people, which was really, really nice. But yeah, the sales there were one or two sales coming through, but they just weren't as high as maybe they had been in the past for me. I know certainly at the last couple of brick festivals it was just constant, especially for the first couple of hours. It was really, really busy. I know I normally bring my partner Anthony to these brick festivals and he normally helps taking money and things like that, but there was just sort of no need. He was sat there a little bit bored actually, but that was fine. You do need somebody else. Me personally, I like to have somebody else there just to sort of help me out just in case it does get busy. And then of course 12 o'clock came round, a few more people came in, but you could sort of tell by sort of 1 o'clock that it just was never going to get as busy as some of these other brick festivals that I'd done. So I think there's a few reasons for that, and I did still obviously make a few sales. I thought my prices were quite competitive as well. I'd been quite careful, thinking that it might be a little bit quieter this event, and I had sort of checked all my prices from the previous brick festival. I had actually lowered a few of them as well, and I sort of looked at eBay sold prices. When I sell my items, I look at eBay sold prices to see how well things actually are, how much things are actually selling for on eBay, and I stayed very much in line with that because I thought it's going to be a little bit quieter, it's going to be harder to get sales. So that's what I decided to do personally. I think that probably paid off because I did sell a few sets that probably I wouldn't have normally sold, and certainly that other people were selling as well that I did manage to sell. So that's not a bad thing that I did manage to do that. Now, so yes, it was a lot quieter than I would have liked. But as I say, it was an extra event for me, so anything that I was going to sell at this event was sort of extra profit and actually was going to help me because I'd spent so much over November and early December on Black Friday deals and all sorts of deals and things like that that I kind of needed the money to compensate for what I'd already spent. So it wasn't a bad thing altogether. So sets wise, just to kind of let you know, so I took 103 box sets as I mentioned before. Of those 103 box sets I actually sold 33, so around about a third, so that's not bad. Normally when I have these brick festivals I'm selling 80 or 90 box sets. I really do sell that many. I know when I went to Bournemouth I had a lot more sets with me. I had about 120 and I think I sold about 90 or 95. So you can see straight away that me selling 33 box sets is a lot lower than previous events. So that was slightly disappointing. Poly bags as well. Now unfortunately I had a bit of a blonde moment when I set my table up and I didn't leave any room for my poly bags. And so normally what I'll do is I'll just have a plastic box on my table with all my poly bags in there, and I'd sort of placed all my box sets out and I thought, oh, I've got no room left for my poly bags. So I didn't put my poly bags out until much later. I think it was probably after 12 o'clock by the time I had space and put my poly bags out. So I did actually only sell 7 poly bags, which I know is pretty pathetic, but I say I didn't have them out for the whole day. And to be quite honest, they're all fairly low value, so they don't make me much money, but at least I sold a few of those. Of those box sets that I sold, these are the big sets that I sold and the price that I sold them for. And some of these prices I think are very, very good. So the people that actually got these sets at these prices, I think they got a pretty good deal. So I had one 21309, which was the Saturn V. That was the original Saturn V from many, many years ago. I actually sold that for £160. I think the recommended retail price for those when they were sold years and years and years ago was about 105, 110 maybe. So a little bit of a profit on there, but not an awful lot. I also sold 21318, which was the Ideas Treehouse. Now this is a set that hasn't retired yet, and it is a set I've got a few of. Unfortunately, is a set I think it was going to retire at the end of last year or maybe the year before, and it didn't, and it just seems to be one of those sets that I think it's going to be on shelves for quite a while. I think at the moment it looks as though it might not even retire until 2025. So I thought rather than hang on to this set just for quite a long time, I'll take one of the sets to the Brick Festival to see if it'll sell. It was actually a last minute inclusion as well, as was the Saturn V. When I'd packed my car the day before, I'd actually got quite a bit of room left in my car, so I went back into my attic and I think I bought 3 big sets down. One was Saturn V, one was the Treehouse, and one was the Corner Garage modular building, which didn't sell, but it was interesting and quite pleasing that 2 of those 3 sets, the extra sets that I bought down, did actually sell. So £170 for the Treehouse. Now that has a recommended retail price at the moment of £215, so that's a very, very good deal. There was a slight bit of damage on the box, and I made the lady that was buying it aware of it. She was going to build that set, so that's fine. So that's a very, very good discount. I obviously made a little bit of profit on that. Obviously when I bought that it was a little bit lower, but it wasn't a great deal of profit. But again, I'm able to cash that in now. I can use that money to buy other things in the future, which is fine. I also sold 21324, which was Sesame Street. I sold that for £125. Sesame Streets haven't particularly increased in value as much as I think a lot of people thought they would. Some great minifigures in there, but for whatever reason I don't think it's been quite as popular as a lot of Lego investors probably initially thought. Maybe just that so many people bought it when it was out that there's just not that many people out there now wanting to get that set. Maybe you need to hang on to it for another year or two for it really to start increasing in value, but I was reasonably happy selling it for that price. I think that was one of my early sales. I think it was one of the people that sort of recognised me as well and watches my YouTube channel, so thank you very much. I think it was Ben. I do apologise if I got your name wrong, but yeah, see, he came back to the stall a few times and bought a few things from me, so that's much appreciated. So yeah, quite a good price for Sesame Street. I also sold 21319, which was the Friends Central Perk. I sold that for £85. I think the recommended retail price for those sets when they went out of stock at the end of last year was £70, although you could actually get them on different platforms like Amazon and things a lot cheaper than that. So I think my buy-in for that set was around about £41, £42. So I pretty much doubled my money on that, and I do have a few more of those left. I bought quite a few of those. I think since Matthew Perry passed away, unfortunately, I think the value of the sets has maybe started to increase slightly because there's only 2 sets where you can get the Chandler minifigure. So I think they will become more popular in time. But I do have more of those. I also managed to sell 40305, which was the Lego House Dagny Home exclusive. So this is a set that I picked up last year when I went to the Billund house, the Lego house in Billund in Denmark. The price of those sets is I think it's about 599 Danish kroner, which works out at around about £71. So it's quite an expensive set, but it's actually quite a decent building set. But I think for whatever reason it just doesn't seem to have been that popular. I've taken this set to quite a few brick festivals. I'd had a higher price on this set previously and it just hadn't sold. Just I had no interest at all in it. So I actually lowered the price. I think I had it on 99 at my last one, so I lowered it to 89. And actually this lady came up and we were having a chat about it. She asked how many pieces were in the set, so I had to go on to Google to find out because the UK boxes don't have set piece numbers on there. So, oh, there's actually it's Danish boxes, isn't it? But European boxes don't have that information. But it's over 1,000 pieces. She was looking to build it. She was a builder. She was quite interested in the set. She said it was an interesting looking build for her. I explained that Dagny Home was one of the earlier Lego sort of builders. She sort of created a lot of the early Lego sets and designed them, so that was sort of a tribute to her. So I think she was very, very happy with her purchase, and as I say, very small amount of profit there on that one for me, but again, it's a set that I managed to sell, and I've freed up that money and I can buy other things in the future. And the only other set really worth mentioning over £50 that I sold was 75955, which was the older style Hogwarts Express, and I sold that for £85. Again, I pretty much doubled my money on that. I think they were available a year or so ago, maybe 18 months ago, on certain platforms at around about £40ish. So again, quite a good sell off on that one. There is obviously a new Hogwarts Express out there, as well as a couple of Hogwarts Express, so I think it was a good opportunity to sell those. And I've taken, I think, a Hogwarts Express to my last 3 or 4 brick festivals, and it's sold every single time, so it's always going to be a popular set. I do have a couple more left, so I can take those to future brick festivals, but they were basically all my, what I consider, big sale sets, as it were. Everything else that I sold, I think, was pretty much less than £50. Of those 33 box sets that I sold, 19 of those, which is a very high percentage, probably nearly 2/3, 60%. 60% of all the sets that I sold were the promo sets. So these are the sets that you get generally from Lego.com if there is a special offer in Lego, and they'll have to spend over a certain amount of money and you get a free promo. So things like I think recently you've had there's been some Christmas sets, there's been like the Maze, there's been some Disney sets as well, like the Disney Mini Steamboat Willie. So there's been a few of these promotions through the year, and I will tend with the promotions. They've always been done very, very well for me. I think people at brick festivals like them. They're relatively small, they're not too expensive, they're collectible, they're nice little builds, a lot of them as well. And a lot of people don't get the opportunity to buy these sets because some of the spend thresholds can be quite high. Obviously I'm buying Lego anyway for some of the larger sets, and so it's nice to get these gift with purchase, and they've always done very, very well for me. So again, it just sort of shows you the power of these sort of smaller promotional sets. Sold 19 of them, so it just sort of shows you that 14 of the sets that I sold were sets that I actually bought sort of off the shelf or whatever, and paid money for. So yeah, it was a really good thing that I took a lot of promos, because they do normally do very, very well. As the event went on, obviously I knew that it was a much quieter day because I had a lot of sets left. The only problem with not selling or having quite a lot of sets left is that there's a lot more to pack away at the end of the day, but actually it wasn't too bad. These brick festivals finish around about 4 o'clock now, which is actually good. Most people had started packing away before then. There weren't many people left in the sports hall by the end of the day, but it's nice to get packed away. I think I was all packed away back in the car around about 4:30, 25 to 5, so it took me just over half an hour to pack everything away in the car, and then it was the drive home. Stopped off on the way, had a nice pub meal, and then went home and sort of was counting my cash. Just sort of let you know as well, the sort of percentage wise of cash was around about, I took around about 2/3 of all the money was on the credit card with the card machine, and the other third was cash, which is normally what you take at these things. It tends to be around about a quarter, 3/4, or a third to 2/3. You always take more credit cards. And the credit card machine, by the way, the sum up card worked absolutely fine. I had 5G signal all day, really good venue for that. I know there have been issues in the past with signal issues, especially in the Milton Keynes events. They've always been a problem for me. I know at the ice rink that they held them at, I had a real problem with that back in March time, and I know a lot of people that went to the Milton Keynes Brick Festival, I think it was in October, maybe November, they all had problems with signal in there. So from a point of view of actually managing to take the sales, it actually worked really well, and there were no problem. A lot of people were paying had a lot of coins. Normally when I go to these things, I have a rather fetching bum bag where I keep all of my change in there, because I have the poly bags and things, and people will give you cash and money, and you'll always need change. In the past I've almost run out of change and been sort of scrapping around for pound coins, but for whatever reason this time I had loads of pound coins. I was sort of way down with this bag full of pound coins and £2 coins. So again, one of those things, you sort of end up with a lot, but I can use all those pound coins. I'll keep them in a float. I always have sort of a £50-60 float to start the day with, and then just sort of put that to one side. So yeah, it just meant I was sort of carrying a lot of a lot of extra cash round with me for the day, but that's fine. Yeah, sort of went home, unloaded my car, and then just sort of had a relax. So the day went okay. I didn't make as much money as I have previously, but what I will do is I will go through and tell you the amounts that I made. Now, normally when I go to these things, I'm a little bit coy about sort of telling people how much I made at these brick festivals, just because I don't want to seem sort of boastful or, you know, I made loads of money. I don't want to be that kind of person. However, I think in these circumstances, because it didn't take an awful lot of money, I don't mind really explaining how much I took. So my takings for the day, they were £1,413. So that's how much money I took on the actual day. So of that £1,400, the buy-in price of the sets that I sold was £599. Now, I know a lot of these sets that I sold were the promos, and I didn't pay anything for them. I sort of put a zero cost down to those, but of the sets that I did sell, there was £599 costs. The tables cost me, it was basically £62 for each table. It's £59 with some fees as well, so it basically rounds up to £62 per table, and I had 2 tables. So that was £124. The petrol to get there and back, or the gas, was around about £35. My car's fairly economical. I get around about 50 miles per gallon. I don't know what that is in miles per litres or kilometres per litres. You'll have to work that one out, because they're UK gallons, of course, as well. So I get a reasonably good mileage from my car. So the petrol was around about £35, so it's just over 2 hours drive there and 2 hours drive back. There were also some miscellaneous fees as well. I didn't actually have to spend an awful lot in the plastic bags and stationery and things. I just had all of that stuff already, so I've just really put £10 down for that, just because I didn't buy anything extra this time, and the stuff that I used was fairly negligible really. Also the card payment. So whenever I take a payment by card, the SumUp people, they take 1.69% of what I take, and then I have to pay that in fee. So they're my fees on the SumUp card reader. So I think I had around about, it was 900 and something pounds, and so the actual card the money that they took off me, the fees, were £16 and a few pence. So in total, that means that my profit for this particular show, so my net profit, was £627, which isn't still bad. I mean, I really can't complain. It's still £600 and odd profit. I do normally take a lot more than that. In past shows, I probably my take-ins have been, you know, 2 or even 3 times as much as that. So that gives you an idea of how sort of how poor the show was from that perspective. But I still made money from it, and you know what, I still thoroughly enjoyed the day. It's always a nice. I do like going to brick festivals. I was able to chat a little bit more to people. A little bit disappointing, I didn't take as much money this time. I think another reason potentially why I didn't take quite as much money is I just don't seem to have any of the sort of older sets that I sort of charge £300 and £400 for. Sort of, they're all gone now. So I had a big collection of older modular buildings, say like the shops and the fire stations, and I had all sorts of sort of things in the past. So I didn't really have many of those sort of higher priced items. Yes, I had my greengrocer, which didn't sell, but apart from that, my sets were generally under about £200. So there weren't many sort of high priced item sets. So again, you only need to sell 2 or 3 of those, and you're making sort of good money. And I haven't really got those sets to sell anymore. So again, that might be another reason why I didn't sell quite as much. But I think you can tell the fact I sold 33 box sets compared to when I normally sell maybe 80 or 90. You can see that the sales really were very, very slow compared to other brick festivals as well. So yes, the day slightly disappointing, not the end of the world. I've still made money, and I've still, importantly of course, made some profit, which of course is what this is all about. And hopefully sort of get an idea of what's involved in these brick festivals. There is a lot of work, a lot of preparation. I obviously spend quite a lot of time prior to going to brick festivals. I'll price all my sets up, I'll put the plastic bags all over them. The good news is, of course, unfortunately I've got a lot of sets that have still got the prices and the plastic bags on, so the next festival that I do or the next Lego fair that I go to, there's actually going to be a lot less work because it's already half done. So that's not all bad as well. And I just want a quick shout out as well to some of the other traders that were at the event. Opposite me was Fred from Hillians Bricks. You can check him out on YouTube. He does a few videos similar to me as well. He does reviews and giveaways and all sorts of different things. So check out his channel, Hillians Bricks. I'll leave a link in the description. And also his son as well, Emil. He's got a channel called Emil's Lego Reviews. I said I'd give him a quick shout out. It's always sort of worth looking at sort of different channels from different perspectives, and it's always nice to see someone a little bit younger who's sort of starting out on YouTube to see what they kind of do. So he was there as well. I think he'd had a long day. He got a little bit tired as the day went on, but yeah, it's really good because he's not that old, and he goes along with his dad, helps him out, and he was sort of sat there at the end of Fred's stall, sort of helping take money and things like that. So it's always good to see. It was amazing actually. I've done a few of these now. It's amazing how many people you do start to recognise, and it was nice as well that there was a few people that recognised me. I know there was a stall opposite me, obviously were you busy doing your own thing, and as the day went on, but went over and had a chat, and yeah, this lad, he's sort of very sort of keen to meet. We had a nice chat, as I do sort of to most people. I don't mind if I've got time to have a nice chat and ask them how they're getting on and how they managed to do. And he had a really big stall actually, so yeah, he had a much bigger stall than I do. I tend to stick to my 2 tables because for me I can manage that, and I don't get too stressed about it, and it sort of works quite well. So yes, if you were at the Brick Festival, whether you were somebody that was buying, just browsing around, came over to say hello, or one of the other traders, hello, and thank you very much for making it an enjoyable day. Yes, it was a little bit disappointing, but it was always nice to sort of meet up with people, have a decent chat, and it was still an enjoyable event where I made a little bit of profit. So that's pretty much it. I hope you've liked my open and honesty about how much I make at these sort of brick festivals. As I say, it was for me one of the least amounts that I've actually taken. I have taken less. The very first one that I did a couple of years ago at Milton Keynes, that was just after COVID, and I actually took less money at that one than I did at Croydon. So I did take a little bit more than at Croydon than I did at that very first brick festival. But all the other ones since then have been sort of 2 or 3 times more successful. So slightly disappointed. That's not put me off going to brick festivals. I've got 2 booked in for next year. I'm hoping, if I can get into them, and they're getting really difficult to get into, that hopefully I'll be able to get into maybe a couple more. I'm hoping to get into the local Bournemouth ones, but you've really got to be on the ball to get into these events now. If I don't manage to get in, I might have to think about doing something else in the future. As to whether the brick festivals have maybe lost their appeal, there are a lot of them now. I think if you are somebody that is a Lego fan, there's probably going to be one, especially in the UK, in your local area, so maybe you wouldn't travel as far to another brick festival. I know in the past I've driven up to, say, Milton Keynes and places like that, which is quite a long way for me to travel, and so maybe the appeal, if they're having 2 of them a year, maybe people do get a little bit, it's the same old thing really. A lot of the models tend to be the same, so I think they just need to sort of maybe advertise well, maybe change things around a little, and maybe even look at some of the sellers that they have at these things, because as I say, I know a lot of the tables sell out really quickly, but even I notice that some of the brick festivals, I'm not saying that my stuff is better than anybody else's, but I do tend to stick to unusual sets or retired sets, whereas a lot of people will sell sets that are currently still available in shops, and if you've got 5 or 6 sellers selling the same sets, it's not great if you're sort of going to a brick festival looking for rare sets, which is what Brick Festival advertise. They sort of show this picture of all these wonderful old sets that haven't been available for years and years, and if those kind of sets aren't available, and if you've only got sets that are just generally available in normal shops, then it doesn't make it a particularly exciting sort of event. So maybe they need to look at who they're letting into these events, what types of sets people are selling and things like that. Again, the admin on something like that would be pretty horrendous. I don't know how they would manage that, but that's just sort of my ideas of what are going to keep these brick festivals sort of fresh and new, and wanting people to come back and again and again and again, which is what you need at these things. Anyway, enough about me going on. I think I've probably talked enough. I hope you enjoyed this video anyway. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.